Hi, everybody. Hello. I got a call on Friday. Well, I got two calls asking me if I could speak.
Thursday.
Was it Thursday? Whatever. And I just said, what am I going to speak about? And Susan and I, when you spoke around Thanksgiving, I called you afterwards to say how meaningful that was, and we were just sharing some things. And you said, speak about the things that we were sharing while you were driving. And I said, I don't remember them. But then I started remembering a few of them, and I thought I would start out with that. The first thing was one time when I was totally overwhelmed. It was in the late 90s. And I saw something in the back of my church, St. Vincent's, that said there was an Advent shindig of some sort at the Monastery of the Poor Clares, which is located in Langhorne. And I decided to go to that. And I was so overwhelmed that I really just wanted to lay on the pew. But I thought if I just laid there, they would call 911, you know? So I didn't, but that's how peaceful I felt there. And then every day after that, for a long time, when my kids were 6, 9, 12, and 15, I went there when they were in school, and I started writing poems. And I hate poems. I've never had an angel experience in my life. And when my friend Annette would call and read her poems, I would be washing the floor, holding the phone. I go, oh, nice. That's how much I hate it. But I was so overwhelmed at that time that I just wrote these words. I said, an angel for the overwhelmed. And I said, I need a team of angels, Lord. I don't think one will do. Please send me all the help from high for what I'm going through. Guardians to watch over me and help my soul to cope. I'll do the best I can to pray and cherish gifts of faith and hope. And I read it to and I didn't think about it. I just wrote those words. And I read it to my friend Terry, who did listen when I read a poem. And she said, well, I just heard Oprah talking that she has a team of angels. I'm like, whoa. So I changed it to a team of angels for the overwhelmed. And I started going to this monastery every day, and I would just have a notebook, probably a copybook. I don't even know what it was. But these words came to me, and I think they weren't my words. I've never used some of these words, like in the medley of life, I feel up and down. Medley, I've never used that. But I was in the middle of separating from my husband or thinking I was going to, or whatever was happening. And I remember writing, a team of angels to heal family problems. Many words were carelessly spoken. Resentment built from the past. Our family needs your guidance to give us peace at last. Please help with shattered emotions. Show us how to feel. We need a team of angels to comfort, care, and heal. And I went on to write 300 poems.
Wow.
And as I read each poem, and I'm only going to read 2 more, I remember where I was in my life. And I remember this one was February 17th. It was my mother's 75th birthday. I was supposed to have this big party, and I was just walking around the coffee table exhausted with worry. And I wrote, a team of angels for taking one day at a time. At times I need to stop and pray when I'm confused about my day. Should I do it later? Should I do it now? I'm not even sure if I know how. When I'm upset and don't know why, I pray the Lord will get me by and send a team of angels near to help me see my problems clear. And I went on to write about wisdom and to let go of bad feelings and for forgiveness and all that. But at some point, when I was sitting in this monastery, and the Monastery of the Poor Clares, the sisters go in there and they're cloistered. They pray for people who have no one to pray for. They dress in a very austere way, just a brown robe and some kind of sandals. And they don't interact with the people that pray. So I would go in there and I would smell the frankincense. I would see the candles. I would sit on the radiator until they put a sign, do not sit on the radiator. I knew it was for me because nobody else was ever in there. Except there was one lady, her name was Deirdre Mullen, and she seemed so old. She was 70, the same age I am. And she sort of just started talking to me when she would occasionally see me. But she had my address, and every Christmas, Thanksgiving, Halloween, Easter, she would bring little gift bags over for my children. Just an older lady reaching out. That was one wonderful thing. And when I was in this monastery by myself, you can see the sisters kneeling and praying occasionally. I don't know when they come out, But this one sister was by herself, and she was young, and I remember she was pretty, and she said, can I call you sometime? I'm like, call me. You're cloistered, you don't, and somehow, I don't remember how it happened, we decided to meet. And I think they're probably allowed to have one visitor in their lifetime. And she was allowing me to be her visitor. And we went in this tiny room, and her name was Sister Colette, and she was getting ready to leave the sisterhood. I don't know why she connected with me, but she said, I'm so overwhelmed. No, I said, I'm so overwhelmed. And she said, I am too, or something like that. And I said, I wrote a poem, A Team of Angels for the Overwhelmed. And she said, oh, and I said, sister, I don't think I'm the only overwhelmed person here in Bucks County. And she said, oh no, dear, you're not. And I read her the poem, I need a team of angels, Lord, I don't think one will do. Please send me all the help from high for what I'm going through. And I said, I wanted to make like an angel pin because my friend Terry's little boy drowned in the pool. I have another friend that has a son with a brain tumor. And I went to Columbus Flea Market and I got these gold safety pins, and I have 3 angel charms that I'm hanging on them. And I said, I'm going to go to Office Max and make a copy of that poem, and I'm going to just add that pin, maybe make 50, 100, I don't know what, and give them to people. And she said, you know what? She said, maybe you should make a lot of them because this is a beautiful poem for people that are hurting. So I said, how would I do that? And she said, well, why don't you go to the Regina's Catholic store in Chalfont and look on the back of the religious articles and see who makes pins like this. And I went in, and this man was there. He was the sales rep, and he said, well, I don't make these. We make fine gold. He said, but if you go to Cathedral Art Metal up in Rhode Island, you can ask them to make this pin for you. And the long and the short is I've made 125,000 of them. And 125,000 people were wearing them. But it didn't happen that quickly. But it all started because of Sister Colette at the monastery. So, who I just connected with on Facebook about 3 months ago, after all these years, 1998 or whatever. So I contacted Cathedral Art Metal and I said, I'm Patricia Gallagher, I live in Bucks County, I'd like to make about 100 of these pins. And they said, we need to do a run of 5,000. So the kids came home from school, and me in the minivan with the collie, I say to the kids, you're not going to school for 3 days. And they said, why? Is it Veterans Day? I said, no, we're going to Rhode Island. And they said, well, where is that? And I said, I don't know, I think it's near Boston. You know, so I take the kids and we drive to Rhode Island, and there's a man sitting in the Days Inn when we have breakfast, the kids and I. And I look like such a housefrau. I mean, I didn't look like, I don't know what I had on, but I went over to this man and I said, excuse me, are you a real businessman? And he just kind of looked at me like, what? But I said, I'm going to have a meeting at this company and they want me to make all these pins, and I don't know how I would do it and all that. And he said, well, you need a hook. And I said, what's a hook? And he said, you need to put a message on the back side of this card that says, please wear this angel pin until you meet someone who needs it more than you do, and kindly pass it along. And he said, you can't sell it, you have to give them away. So I took my Discover card and I ordered 5,000. Now the company says, well, you need to have permission from the township to bring a tractor trailer in because we have blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I credit Sister Colette for doing that. And then I credit Sister Colette for just feeling so welcome when I went there. That no matter where I moved, to Royersford, an hour away, when I lived in Chalfont, where I live in Skipback area now, I go there at least once a week. I go there in good times, I go there in bad times. But I'm very superstitious, not really superstitious, but I believe that this is my place of solace, where my creativity comes out. And I don't have a lot of talents. I have never scrambled an egg. I've never cooked a turkey dinner, true confession here, but I just feel like when I get an idea, my father always said, nothing ventured, nothing gained. When I get an idea, I run with it. I have an MBA, but I can't do a business plan. I don't want to do a business plan. I don't operate that way. It's just my internal GPS. One time I was at this Poor Claire's and there was a lady there and she wrote poetry, and I said something like, I write poems too. And she said, oh, can I have your phone number? And I said, okay. And I was living in Royersford, and she called and she said, can you come back to the Poor Claire's? I just left. And she said, I have a message from God for you. And I said, oh my God. You know, is this lady, you know, what? I went back and she gave me a copy of the 23rd Psalm. I was raised Catholic and we did the catechism. I had never read anything that said, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me behind still waters. I needed still waters at that point. But she said something else. She said, when I went back, I did drive an hour back, and she said, God wants me to tell you he has something mighty planned for you. Whether he did or didn't, whether she said that to everybody she ever met, to me it was a personal message. And I was so grateful for that. About that time, 1998, when I was so overwhelmed, I left Richboro and I'm driving the minivan up to Quakertown, and somehow I get to this gift shop. And I just buy this book by this lady named Cheryl Carpin, who lived in Minnesota. And I only bought the book because I liked the color of it. I don't even know what the color. I liked the ribbon it was bound with. It was like a taffeta or something to bind. It wasn't bound like a regular book. And I wrote Cheryl a letter and I said, it was a letter back then, thank you so much for your beautiful green book. I think it's just what I needed. I picked it up and I bought it, and it's lovely. And somehow we connected. Right before the pandemic, that summer, I was sitting in my house. I live in an apartment on 5 acres with a little stream and a covered bridge, so it's very pretty. And I went out in the backyard and I just said, God, I need an adventure, something exciting in my life. I don't think it was a half hour when I get a call from Minnesota. Hi, Tricia. This is your long distance friend, Cheryl Carpin. You know, I don't know whether you'd be interested or not, but you know, Mark and I have a beautiful home. Would you like to come out here and just a little retreat, just spend some time with us? And she said, but really, I have a hidden agenda. I want to pick your brain. I'm thinking, pick my brain. Cheryl, when I went to the Javits Center for a trade show, you had the biggest booth. You had staff. You had the most beautiful products. You want to pick my brain? And she said, now, when do you want to come out? Do you want to come out next week? Or I'm going to send you the airline ticket, and, you know, you can stay as long as you want. She said, how long do you want to stay? And I said, you're a stranger. I'm not even sure where I'm going to go. I don't even know where Minnesota is. And I think I said, well, how about in 3 weeks? And she said, how many days? And I said, well, maybe 2. And she goes, oh, that's not enough time. So I flew out there. She got me the ticket. And I'm standing at the airline, and I'm thinking, what am I going to talk to this lady about? And as soon as we got in the car, we clicked. We went way back to the Myers-Briggs. We were both ENFPs. She just operated like I operated, like intuition from above. You know, that's the kind of person. We went to see Garrison Keillor, and it was wonderful. And while we were there, those 3 or 4 nights, whatever it was, her mother was in a nursing home. I'm sorry, some sort of assisted living. And we would go over and watch The Bachelor with her mother, and we would do that. And then Cheryl, a few months later, said, you know, my mother, Ma Carpin, is turning 99. I wish we could do something special. And I was sitting in the Poor Claire's, and I said, God, what can I do for Mrs. Carpin? She's turning 99. And an idea came into my head to contact the CBS Early Show and ask them if they would send yellow roses or flowers to Mrs. Carpin. You can't just call the CBS Early Show. The producers don't answer the phone. You never get anybody. And they didn't have internet service at the Poor Claire's, so I went to Starbucks in Warminster. And I looked up the CBS Early Show, and I get this man, and he's a producer. And I said, this wonderful lady, she's independent, she's an artist, she still cooks her own meals, she walks a mile every day. Could you send her something like flowers? And he said, I'd like to, but my wife's out of work, I have a kid in college, I can't do that. He said, let me check in with Gail King. And this was for the next morning. And so I'm like sending him all these wonderful things, sending pictures of Mrs. Carpin and and finally he sends me a message, you can stop lobbying, it's done. He said, click this link. It was like, and here's Gail King. It was 6 minutes on the CBS Early Show.
Wow.
Hi, Mrs. Carpin, what a beautiful lady you are. I hope I can walk a mile when I'm 99, and you still cook, and you started doing your art at age 58. So to me, that's a miracle that happened. And Mrs. Carpin didn't make her 100th birthday, or close to it anyway. Then I remember another time. The kids were probably that 6, 9, 12, and 15. And I'm going through the separation, and I'm saying, geez, I'd like to take them to Disney World. I'm going, how can I do that? And so I'm sitting in the Poor Clares, and the idea was to contact Eastwind Airlines in Trenton, not that far from where I lived in Richboro, and ask them if they wanted to trade my book from a few years ago called Raising Happy Kids on a Reasonable Budget. So I contacted the marketing guy, and I said, hi, I was just thinking of your airlines, and you have the pocket right there. Would you like to trade Raising Happy Kids on a Reasonable Budget? He said, no. I thought, what else do I have? Angel pens? I thought, nah, they're secular.
Yeah.
And then I said, is there anything else that I might be able to help you with? And he said, when the kids are on the airline, there's nothing for them to do. And I had just been to Denny's, and I was at Perkins, because remember, I don't cook. So I had been to Friendly's. So I remembered all these placemats that were for kids to doodle, word scrambles, and things like that. So I said, would you like me to make a placemat for Eastwind Airlines? What's your logo? And it's the bumblebee. So I had every kind of joke, riddle, joke, word scramble, maze, let the bumblebee get from here to Orlando. And he said, yeah, why don't you do that? So I went home, and I had a graphic designer make a two-sided, big, laminated thing. And then I took it to the Poor Clares, sprinkled a little holy water on it, let it germinate a little while. And then I went to Trenton, and the guy said, yeah, this is great. He said, how many in your family? And I said, 6. He said, okay, here. We had 6 tickets. And then I said, well, wait a minute, where shall we stay? And then I thought the Sun Spree Resort, Holiday Inn. And these, remember, no business plan, no ideas. I would sit there and get an idea, and I would run with it. I called the Sun Spree Resort and spoke to Jim Burke, or whatever his name was, and I said, my family and I would like to come there. Would you like to trade the Raising Happy Kids on a Budget book? Would you like some angel pins? And after a few conversations, he said, we'd love to have the angel pins for our staff as a thank you. Do you have any for thank you? I thought, well, I will by tomorrow. So I had a team of angels to thank you. He said, and in our gift shop, we like things for upbeat. I have a team of angels for encouragement. So I traded 1 week at the Sun Spree Resort for that. And I'm not saying this in any bragging way. I'm just saying I was a desperate mother trying to figure out. And I said, but the Disney pass, that's so expensive. How will we get the day hopper pass? And don't want to go to, I don't know, SeaWorld or whatever, the Epcot or whatever it is. So I called Disney, once again, sitting in the Poor Clares, getting an idea. Well, you should pay for something, Tricia. Well, no, why don't you just ask? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. And I happened to get a man that answered the phone, and I said I was an author of this Raising Happy Kids that I'm trying to, barter. And he said, I'm an author. I want to be an author. He said, could you spend some time with me on the phone since you're an author and you had written a book on how to get a book published? And I'm going, well, that was in 1990. It's probably not relevant anymore. And then he said, okay, come to the will call window, and we'll have tickets for your whole family. So that's the way I operate. It's a little weird, but it works for me. And my kids know, now that they're older, and Ryan, who was 6 at the time, is 6'6", and he's 31, and Kristen's 34, and Robin and Caitlin are older. But they know all I want for Christmas. All Mom ever wants for her birthday is to go to the Poor Clares as a family. To just sit in that pew, stand in that pew, just hold hands. And it's like a spiritual experience. And this happened not too long ago. I had to write an apology to the sisters because my son and my daughter and my husband and I were all at the Poor Clares, and they decided they wanted to eat pizza in the parking lot. You know, this is a very sacred ground. It's not for Giuseppe's Pizza. And then they had the big dog. So I felt that the nuns might be peeking out and saying, do these people think this is Tyler Park? What are they doing? And so I wrote the sisters this letter. Dear sisters, I had not seen my son for a long time. He was working out of state. I just wanted to explain the strange scene you may have seen last Tuesday. Thank you for being my place of solace for the past 22 years. Even though I live an hour away, I'm always so happy when I can visit. Thank you. With gratitude, Patricia Gallagher. And then I wrote this. All beloved furry creatures, great and small, God loves them all. But would he really want a frisky, one-year-old, gorgeous golden retriever inside the monastery of the Poor Clares Chapel? After all, this is the home of the sisters who live in a cloistered, contemplative community. The quarantine was really getting to me. I miss my son Ryan. He had lived so far away. In mid-March, he moved back to the area, but the timing was bad. On the day he moved in, we were sheltered in place, quarantined for 2 months. On Tuesday, I suggested an outing to Core Creek Park. I could spend some quality time getting to know my granddog and socially distance walk with my son. At the last minute, I asked Robin and John to join us. We sat on the dock watching people fish and kayak. We walked around sipping the drinks he brought for us. Somebody suggested getting a pizza at Giuseppe's about 15 minutes away, back in Richborough where we raised the kids. My favorite place in the world, the Monastery of the Poor Clares, was only a stone's throw away, and more than anything, I wanted to ask them to go to the chapel with me. 17 acres of trees, deer in the woods, lots of birds, plenty of squirrels, my sanctuary. Going there with the kids would mean more than any present for Mother's Day, but I didn't say it out loud. I doubted that the chapel would trump their idea to go get pizza. Ryan brought the steaming hot pizzas out to our cars. Robin asked, Mom, where do you want to eat it? Here in the parking lot or at the Poor Clares? My unspoken prayer was answered. We all drove back to Langhorne. Robin and I went into the chapel. When we came out, Ryan and John were tossing a frisbee on the yard. That's not what you do there. This is a quiet place. We sat down and ate the pizza as if we were still at the park. When Ryan said he wanted to go into the chapel with me, I was beyond thrilled. Mom, can I bring the dog in? He needs a blessing too. How could I tell him no? Riley was like his kid. I peeked in and saw that the sisters were having their prayer devotions. Okay, Ryan, you can bring him in for a minute. Maybe because it was holy ground or because he felt the peace, Riley was calm. All 100 pounds of furry Riley sat looking pious. He enjoyed the dog's eye view of the chapel. His cold, wet nose leaned into Ryan as if to say, I like it here. Sure enough, God loves the creatures great and small, and I felt joyful the Tuesday before Mother's Day, the way only a mother can. Yes, I think faith and fur are a great combination. Thank you. Thank you.